chug, 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 Welcome back to the Wizard Staff. I'm your host, Guy.
I'm Blake.
And today we also have another very special guest with us. Blake, would you like to introduce him?
Yes, so I've mentioned him a couple times in former episodes as the man who got me into this hellhole of a game. And I'm talking, of course, about my friend Dillan. Dillan, how's it
Dillan,
going?
welcome to the podcast. How long have you been playing the game?
I have played Magic since freshman year in high school, which was 9 years ago.
What interests you about the game?
I actually learned off of playing on a PlayStation, like the Magic the Gathering game. And after I played a couple games, I decided to go to a Magic store and learn how to play at a pre-release.
Aliens.
Do you have a favorite card?
Yeah, my favorite card is Mimeoplasm.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Allura.
Nope. I really enjoy playing Allura.
How many decks do you think you've built over the years?
I actually just counted. It was 32.
No, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So we've always mentioned how Blake and I are pretty much novices when it comes to this game. But Dylan here is very much professional. As much as a professional as we can, well, as much as of a professional that we could get, because I don't think we'll be talking to, like, I can't even name a pro player at the moment.
No.
Okay. Can you tell us something embarrassing or funny Blake has done before?
God damn it.
Did you see my notes, whatever?
No. What did I do?
So Blake is kind of a klepto.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
And we would go to parties in college, and you would steal beer after everyone left. And my friend brought a 36 pack of beer to a party, and Blake stole it thinking it was someone else's, and it was my buddy's. Who he lived with.
Yeah, so he brought the beer, and then, like, the next morning he opened the fridge, and the beer he, like, brought there for everyone to drink was back in the fridge. He's like, what the fuck happened? And it's like, sorry.
God, oh my god, Blake. I didn't know
I thought
this
I
about
told you multiple times that I do this, and it's a problem.
I guess I had to,
find out
find
the hard
out this way. This is the way now I'll always remember it. So on today's episode, welcome to episode 10, first double-digit episode. That's really exciting. We are doing how to build an EDH deck notes.
Because everyone on Twitter asked us for it in a very small poll.
Almost.
Everyone, and like 4 people. Everyone as in 4 people wanted it.
In the 10
people?
The 10 people,
Shit,
4 people wanted it. I guess that's like a ninth of our Twitter following at the moment. But we wanted to bring Dylan on because he's a professional. He knows more about the format. So we're doing a Q&A with him because he can give you much better pointers than
Yes.
Blake and I ever could. So a little about EDH before we get started, kind of what makes it different between the different formats. You start with 40 life, as to where most other formats start with 20, except,
Nobody cares about Brawl.
That is.
Come back when you're a main character.
In EDH, it's typically a multiplayer game, typically played with 3+ people, most of the times even 4. You have 100 cards in a deck. They're singleton format, except for your basic lands. And you have 1 legendary creature that is put as your commander, and your commander also then determines the colors of your deck. So if you have, for example, Atraxa, you have a green... Shit, what colors is Atraxa? It's green,
Black, blue, white.
Thank you, Dylan. See, this is why we have him on the podcast. My man.
So with that deck, you can only use cards that are in that color scheme. So we've broken it down into 5 main categories: choosing a commander, the ratio of the deck, pacing, how to find cards and picking cards, and win conditions for your deck. So let's get started with choosing a commander. Dylan, would you like to talk about this a little first?
The first thing I would do when choosing commander is Well, for me, I know what the colors do. So I say I want these colors in it, and then I would search for a legendary with those colors, and then there would be a theme I like. But for a new player, I'd probably go on EDH Rec because you don't know cards. And on EDH Rec, they have a huge database of cards where they can tell you what legendaries people tend to build decks with.
How much would you say the commander influences a deck's objective?
It depends what you want to do with the deck. I've seen... Well, this is actually one of my problems with decks now, as opposed to when I started playing, is most decks now are mainly focused on the commander, and then decks in the past have been more focused around the 99 instead of the one commander.
I mean, I haven't been playing long enough to really
Yeah.
see that happen, but I don't know. I trust your opinion that that's right. It's like...
I mean, because Commander wasn't even, like, really represented as a format by Magic until not too long ago. And
How
ever
long-
since then, they didn't really even print cards for Commander.
How long has it been that, like, Wizards of the Coast has, like, officially recognized Commander? Do you know?
I don't know the exact, but the first Commander decks to come out were Mimeoplasm. There was 3 Commanders in each color. I can't remember all of them. It was, like, Kalia, Mimeoplasm.
Deviri?
No, Deviri was actually a couple years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's been, like, I think, like, maybe 5 to 8 years or something? I don't
Yeah, I'd say about that.
know. What are some, like, common problems you see when, like, playing against or, like, watching other people build decks? Like, when you see people, like, doing deck techs or building decks, what are, like, some common problems you see them do?
They do what everybody else does. And
Okay, well, yeah.
No, let me speak. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I really hate that every time I see, like, an Una deck, 99% of the time I know exactly what's in the deck and I know how to play
I feel
against
so
it.
attacked right now.
Well, you have an Una deck is what I could think of the
Okay.
top end. Or if I see, like, a Mimeoplasm deck, which I play a lot, like, 99% of the time, I can tell you what's in their deck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not because... I don't even think that's because I played that much. I just think because net decking is such a big thing that everybody just tends to gravitate towards those cards instead of coming up with, like, their own unique ideas.
Mm-hmm.
The other problems I see is just throwing in good stuff,
Yeah,
like
value
Commander
cards.
staples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, why not throw in an Eternal Witness into a green deck? Why not?
Yeah, and they might not be the best thing to throw in the deck.
Guy, like, do you just feel like when you're, because you're kind of new to this too, like, I mean, so am I, but like, do you, like, you use a lot of online resources as a new player?
Definitely. Like,
It's like, yeah, I'll fucking admit it.
yeah, I'm not ashamed to say, like, I think it's fine to, like, use online resources, and it definitely gives you kind of that, what I would consider, like, the skeleton of a deck is, like, okay, here's, like, 60 cards that I should probably use, and then kind of am able to then pick, okay, well, what cards do I really want to play with? And that allows me to get more of a unique flavor to what I want to play with.
Yeah, I agree. Especially for new cards. I mean, new players. New players, don't really know what to put in a deck, and those will give you really good options. And if you just want to get in and play, like, it will allow you to go play and have a good time and win some games. But at the same time, I think, like, when you're learning to ride a bike, you eventually need to take the training wheels off.
I actually like that analogy, yeah.
And you need to start thinking for yourself a little bit and then learn some different strategies that other people have not thought of. That being said, there's only so many cards, so you can't, like, you can't just invent new cards, obviously, but there's really interesting decks you can come up with if you, like, actually sit down and put your mind to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have, like, access to virtually every single card in existence.
Exactly.
That's why I love it.
Except for the cards on our ban list, which you can go and watch now, in the middle of this podcast.
Stop watching this episode to watch another episode that we did.
Two episodes,
Yeah.
then come back and watch this episode.
Nice plug. A+.
Thank you.
A+.
So before we go on to the next topic, the ratio of a deck, forgot to ask, but what's everyone drinking tonight?
Oh yeah, so Dylan and I are sharing this like whiskey I picked up called Legacy. It was on sale, so that's why I bought it, and it's actually pretty good.
It tastes like honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I specifically did not
That's
buy the
pretty
Tennessee honey because it was on sale, and I was like, no, I've had too much of that at parties, and I've lost my taste for it.
It's too sweet.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
woo,
Nice.
alcoholism.
What are you
Funny
drinking?
story, but I'm drinking Guinness. But
Thank
so,
God you're not drinking wine again. I was about to punch you in the face.
Shut up. Anyway, so like, my grandma's kind of. I live with my grandparents at the moment before I move out to San Francisco, and she's kind of noticed that I take alcohol upstairs, and she's like, "What are you doing upstairs?" And I'm like, "Oh, whenever I call Blake, he and I drink a lot." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So when I went out to the garage to the refrigerator and like brought in 3 Guinnesses, she just kind of looks at me and she's like, "You gonna go call Blake?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I just walked upstairs.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm drinking Guinness tonight.
Okay.
Man's beer.
I'm glad I'm like part of the family. Your grandparents know my name.
My grandparents are super chill with that though. So, like, I can do almost anything I want. That's why I get drunk upstairs.
No, just
Anyway, alright, so next topic, ratio of the deck, which is the ratio of the lands to sorceries, to creatures, etc., etc. Part of this also kind of goes into a basic template for a deck. The command zone has 10 mana ramp cards, 10 card draw cards, 5 single threat removals, 5 board wipes. This is kind of what they think should go in every deck. Do we kind of agree with this? Do we disagree with this?
Go for it.
Who wants to go first?
All right. So like starting off like Guy and I feel like this is great. This is perfect because it's like you quickly realize like within the first year of playing EDH that like mana ramp's like one of the most important things, and also drawing cards. I'd say mana ramp and cards are like the most important thing to do. So like labeling those categories is very important. Also creating categories for like single targeted I've had a bit of drink. Single targeted removal and like mass removal are also like key parts of like coming out ahead. So when you're first starting out, I think that's really like helpful, like to have labels. But I don't know, as I've like played more and more, it's weird. It's like I care less about those categories and like care more about just raw synergy. And in that synergy, you find the mana ramp, the card draw, the spot removal, the mass removal. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Very
Okay.
nice.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that
I'm a little bit
makes sense.
drunk.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
So what I would do is the 10 mana cards and the 10 draw cards, I would kind of branch those into one category, and that's what we'll be talking in a little bit called pacing. But the threat removals and the board wipe, I think that's a good start, but something I want to emphasize is when you first build your deck, it's kind of like writing a paper. Like the first time you ever play your deck is like a rough draft, and you want to constantly be updating it, and you might not need that. Threat removals and board wipes are good, but depending on your deck, it might not be necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dylan, I don't think that's a good analogy for me, because I would write my papers the night before they were due. So there's no time for a rough draft.
It's the final
just
draft all the way,
Get
baby.
it done. It's the rough, it's the final, it's everything in one. So to me, when a deck's, well, and when I definitely go back and I'll say like, yes, this is the most perfect deck list, and then I'll play and lose, and I'll be like, well, fuck that, I was wrong. And then I go back and add cards, but you know, I do like that, and that is a good analogy, despite my poor work ethic.
Something else I would like to make a comment about is that you want to not be unhappy every time you draw a card. And a lot of the decks I've been playing with my group right now, we kind of have a powered down format where we just like to sit around and talk more than like it's to win the game. It's more of like everybody getting to know each other, but we try to play and win at the same time. And a lot of my decks don't do this right now. There's cards I don't want to draw, but that's why you need to play your deck a lot, because you want to draw a card and be like, wow, I can actually use this in this situation to get me ahead in some like way.
Basically, every card you want to be happy to see.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yes.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
to
Oh,
some
it feels
degree.
so good.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, when I'm building a deck, this basic template does not apply to me. I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm just kind of like, oh, what cards do I want to play?
Yeah.
If I were to look at my decks, I could then probably say like, yeah, I think I got like at least 10 mana ramps in there somewhere. Those count, I think. Oh yeah, there's card draw somewhere.
Guy,
You know.
do you even have 10 mana ramp or 10 card draw in your mono white Avacyn deck?
So pacing is an interesting concept.
Let's move on so Guy
Okay.
doesn't get embarrassed.
Dylan, can you
This will
can,
save.
can you talk about pacing a little?
So about pacing,
Yes.
you want me to explain?
Yes, please.
So for pacing, what I like to do is basically I write out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and those are like the turns and like so forth. And on turn 1, you essentially don't need to do anything of CMC value worth. But on turn 2, you better be doing at least something of 1 value. Now, you don't have to essentially play a creature that's like 1 CMC or an enchantment that's 1 CMC. You could also be holding out with a spot removal that's 1 CMC, such as like swords to plowshares or something like that. And you want to kind of follow that general trend. So like on turn 2 or turn 3, turn 2 you need to be doing something of 1 CMC value. Turn 3 you need to be doing something of 2 CMC value, and so forth. Cards that are really good at pacing are like mana ramp, because they actually put you kind of ahead of the curve or the pace. And when you have more mana, you can play bigger spells quicker, which is why green and blue are some of the easiest decks to make, because it allows you to card draw and it also allows you to mana ramp very easily and put you ahead of pace. Now they're easy to stop with spells in white and black. That's why like those decks are still good. But I think it's a really good trend for new players to start out with. Try to build your deck so you can somewhat follow a trend.
You basically want to be able to like do like one thing every turn, like in proportion to that turn.
Yes, that's how I would put it out at first. You don't need to be casting like say you're on turn 13 and
Okay.
you don't need to be casting a spell that's like 12 mana. You could be casting a couple spells or be holding out to respond to people.
That add up to
Yeah,
12?
that add up to around 12.
Okay.
To keep somewhat pace of the game, if that makes sense. Because
Mhm.
I feel like most people are going to be playing their game, and if somebody gets a really good hand, they're going to be ahead of the pace, and people, if they get a really bad hand, are going to be behind the pace, and you want to stay kind of equal, so you
Mhm.
can respond to the good player, and you could stop, like, say, a combo from going off.
Mm-hmm. This is just like, I've never heard that concept before, and it's still, like, we talked like a couple days ago, and I'm still like, what? Oh, that
I
kinda...
know.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's different than mana curve.
Yes, because in my opinion, you can have less mana and still be in a really good spot. Like, I've built a black and white deck, and I've won games with 2 mana when people have 10.
You told me about that. That's fucking, that still blows my mind to this
It's
fucking
just
day.
because, like, you have the right cards in your deck to deal with the situation that's happening. Now, that's not normally going to happen, but
Mhm.
you just need cards to be able to kind of respond to things.
Mhm.
Which is why I really liked the command zone where they said, like, have 5 spot removals, because removal is very good. Or it doesn't even need to be removal. It could be counters, it could be bounce, it could be discard. There's a ton of things you can do, and until you like actually start looking into concepts of decks, like I feel like it's kind of hard to see those. That's why I think the Command Zones like format is really good for new players.
Yes.
Because it will allow them to somewhat have a deck that can compete most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for newer like more veteran players, I would say that
it doesn't really apply. It doesn't really apply to you anymore.
Yeah. You can ignore that.
You're on like kind of a higher
level.
That
being said, even when I'm building a new deck, like I will say like, oh, I need cards that draw, I need cards that ramp, I need cards that have some removal, but I don't count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every time.
Right.
And then I play it out and it's like, oh, I'm not consistent enough, I'm not like drawing enough. Well, then I take out some of my other cards that are too big or something like that, and then replace them with something that would allow me to draw or allow me to ramp. Okay. That's why I said, like, the first time you play a deck, usually it's not going to go how you think.
Yeah.
Like, at all. Unless you copied a deck list from online, which isn't a bad thing, especially for newer players.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even if you do, like, completely copy a deck from online and you pilot it, you're not necessarily know how to properly pilot it.
Yeah, you might not...
This is like leading into a different topic.
This
but
is
yeah,
a whole nother
this
topic.
is a whole nother topic.
I hate the term piloting decks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you have a general understanding of Magic for the most part, you can take
pilot
any deck and you can make it work most of the time.
Yeah.
Now there's some combos you need to know, like, oh, I'm supposed to tutor for this and then do this and do this. You don't know that. But for the most part, like, if you picked up like an average powered deck that you see at your local shop, I think you should be able to pick it up and like do okay.
Yeah, like how anyone can pick up a like command or precon and like function.
Yes.
Even though they're a little bit like powered down, but still, that proves my point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you? But then, so my question then is like, how do you kind of pick the cards so that you'll be able to consistently be on that pace?
You're saying, like, so are you looking at it like you always need to cast a bigger spell every turn?
No, I'm trying to think then, like, how are you picking the cards that will be most effective, but you're still being able to have cards that you will be able to use and keep on the pace that you're suggesting that you will be able to do something turn 2 with 1 or 2 mana?
Make sure the cards you're playing actually has use. Like, because a lot of people will play like just good stuff cards, like I was talking about earlier. And
gestures towards me.
Sorry.
No, it's true.
I didn't mean to.
No, it's true.
And,
no, I play good stuff because I'm still learning this after 2 years.
And when you play just good stuff, decks can win. I feel like there's turns where you'll draw cards and it's like, well, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything. It's just kind of in your hand.
Yeah. I've definitely been guilty of that a couple times. One of the questions that, before we move on to the next category that Guy and I have, how do you like filter your cards so that they are the most effective that they can be? Because you're talking about like how effective they are so that every time you draw them, they're good.
Okay.
How do you decide the effectiveness of cards?
I think it's just constant playing. Like, you just want to keep playing a deck over and over and over and make sure you use, like, at least use every card once so you can see how it, like, functions in your deck.
Yeah. Because
I know I'll play, like, 3 or 4 games in a day and I'll draw, like, around the same, like, 25 cards and I didn't even touch the other, like, 3/4 of my deck.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you just keep playing your deck over and over and over. And even if you're playing against yourself, like if you just set up one of your other decks and you just sit there and play it over and over and over, eventually I think you're going to find weaknesses and strengths in your deck. And if you can't, I would hand it to a friend that also plays Magic and they're like, hey, like this, I saw you play this card, like it's not really doing anything in your deck. Like it's just a creature, that's big.
Okay, so I do want to say that like for the last 4 months, I've been working in the woods, and I was literally in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and that's kind of what I would do, is I would just, like, playtest my decks, just I have enough decks where I can like play against my other decks, and I just like go across the table like playing turn for turn. And I actually agree with you where it's like I learn a lot about like, oh, I didn't think about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I highly suggest not playing by yourself though.
Well, yeah,
Like-
because like
No, like you had no choice, but like
Yeah.
I really suggest, even if you have no friends that play Magic, go to a card shop because you will meet people and it will be a lot more fun.
will completely think different from you and have completely different play styles than you.
Yeah, because that's how I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that Guy is starting to go to LGSs after like an entire year.
Yeah, I've been playing one-on-one for 90% of my time playing this game. Probably only within the last 2 or 3 weeks have I really gotten to go out and play other people that aren't like close friends of mine. So
Okay, so I play very control decks, and I feel like if I play against a one-on-one, I can usually just, you're not going to be able to do anything and it's not going to be fun. That's why I don't like one-on-one.
Okay, Guy, to like give context, like I've played against like Dylan's Derevi deck, the bird wizard that like taps stuff.
I'm aware
and,
of what it does.
Okay, so like it's pretty fucking impressive even in 4-player, and it's just like it's been funny because like I played it like years ago, and like now throughout time like more and more of like dual commander bans have come out, and it's like, man, that deck's really fucking banned, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why it's banned in 1v1.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking. It's funny though. It's like you made it before all this shit happened.
Yeah, I've had that deck as soon as Derevi came out.
Yeah, it's a cool ass card.
So we're going to move on to our next category, which is how to find cards and then pick those cards. There's a lot of online resources, EDH Rec, Magic the Gathering, the actual site, and Tapped Out. Dylan, what's kind of your strategy when using these sites?
So when I first started playing, only Gathering and Tapped Out was around. So I really learned how to use Gathering, and Gathering, in my opinion, is still my go-to, but I know a lot of people use EDH Rec. And EDH Rec is really good for new players. It does net decking like we were talking about, where it will give you recommended cards, and I suggest everybody go there that like doesn't know really what they're doing.
It's
or
just starting
what cards. But if you've been playing for a while, or if you find a commander that has kind of a niche thing, and for some reason on EDH Rec they're only suggesting like good stuff, because I tend to see them do that for the most part. How I used Gathering is by Google search, and Blake's laughing, but
It works though. I've
Yeah.
seen him do it.
so I was a biochemistry major for a while, and you need to really learn how to find things on the internet for research. And I'm not kidding. So what I will type in, like, say my commander needs mana ramp, like just Google search mana ramp green cards, and they will come up with a list of cards that are not on EDH Rec, because on EDH Rec they're using what most people put in their deck, and that might not necessarily be like the best cards.
Don't just be a sheep in the crowd. Basically.
Be the wolf.
That being said, I don't want people to think I'm like a hipster. Like,
It's like I was doing this before it was cool.
no, not like that. Like I do use a lot of cards that other people use in their decks. Like I do use EDH Rec, even though I've been like playing for a while, and I use it because it does have a bunch of cards that everybody plays in their deck, but I like take it with a grain of salt and then go do my own research, and then I'm like, wow, these cards were actually good, these ones weren't. Like I don't even know why these were on the site in the first place.
Yeah.
And then if you come up with some type of strategy with your deck that like other people aren't doing, it's not going to be on EDH Rec, such as how the way I play my Deviri deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I play her with only creatures that have flash, and people play a stacks method for the most part.
Yeah.
And I use it as kind of like you can respond to the situation with my creatures.
Yeah.
And if you search EDH Rec, it's definitely not going to have that.
Yeah. I do remember giving you like like my pre-release Aven Mind Sensor and be like, you have to put this in your Derevi deck. Yeah. Even though you couldn't find the like other art, it's fine. I still remember that. That was good. Because I just wanted you to have that card.
Yeah, and my decks have changed a lot. Like when I first started playing, it was all about seeing who could win the quickest because we didn't know about cards. And then once we started learning about cards, it became who could afford the right cards because we were in high school.
Yeah.
And then it became whoever worked the most had the best decks and could usually win.
Yeah.
And if you actually look in Magic, I feel like it's not that big of a money. Like who has the most money wins.
It's less pay to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! That's our one Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference for the episode. There you go.
Well, the other thing I really like about Magic, why I suggest everybody go play against multiple people, is I feel like the biggest part about Commander and why most people play Commander is politics.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
Even if you have a crappy deck, you can still win.
Yeah.
Like, there's been times where I've been completely mana screwed in one games because I talked my way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times where I've lost because people have convinced me to do certain things that I probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's why I love this game. Like, no other trading card game has, like, multiple players and, like, politicking.
There's a huge human nexus.
Yeah. And that's why I love this game. I'll probably die playing it. And that's really sad. But, you know, it's also great.
Lake will die playing it because he'll be playing against me, and I'll get mad, and I'll probably kill him.
Just don't banish me to the Shadow Realm. Okay, that's the second Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference we'll make, and that's it. Okay.
Lake, you liar.
Because we have to. That's our whole gimmick. So, we have to, like... Okay, I want to ask you, like, two broad questions, Dylan.
Okay.
Because, like, I already know kind of what your answer is, but
Okay.
it's like, I still want to ask them because I feel like they're important. How do you feel about net decking since you've been playing Commander before there were online resources?
I don't have a problem with it because I think it's really good, even for veteran players, like players that have been playing a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Because say you find a commander and you know nothing about it, even if you've been playing a while, there's still commanders. Like for some reason, it slipped me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go on there and see like, oh, people are playing it this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good start. But if it wasn't like what I envisioned for the deck, if that makes sense, I will kind of ignore it. So I would say EDH Rec is really, really good for people starting out, and I will still use it, so I don't have a problem with it at all. But I would say take things as a grain of salt as you progress further into the game.
Right. It's more of like an introductory thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Guy, what do you think?
I guess the one... So, I'm going to make another Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference. You're good.
God damn it.
But when you play Yu-Gi-Oh! You play by archetype almost always. If you want to be, like, actually good at the game. And if you play that archetype has, like, I don't know, like, every deck in that archetype is going to use 95% of the same cards. And that's how that deck wins. And that's how that deck is good. So there's no room for creativity. Whereas in Magic, with EDH at least, you do have room for that creativity. And so I do think still net decking to a degree is okay. And if you do want to, like, quote unquote pilot a deck, sure, but you should also be able to put in your personal touch, because if this is your deck, then this is how you want to play it.
And I definitely gave Guy shit about, like, his weird ass choices for white pet cards. I think it was like, what, number 4 on your list or something?
Healing Grace, and
yeah, I definitely gave you a lot of shit about that. And it's like, okay, like, I immediately kind of regretted it. It's like, okay, like, yeah, they're not good cards, but, like, you still kind of like them. And it's like, that's your choice.
And you're not going to
I
see
respect
those
your
cards in
choice.
a lot of Avacyn decks.
Yeah, and you're not going to, because they're bad. Anyway, we should move on to our 4th category, which is
5th category?
or 5th. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, I've been drinking a little bit, as you can tell. Is like win conditions, because everyone likes to win the game, sometimes it's nice to win the game and feel good.
I don't think I've actually ever won a multiplayer game, which now when I go
That's because you're a scrub.
now when I go to my LGS tomorrow, it's gonna be my main goal.
Oh, are you going tomorrow?
Going tomorrow and Saturday.
Fucking good. Better fucking win with that Jace deck, because I'm gonna give you shit for life until you win for it.
Okay. So win conditions are the like kind of pathway in a deck to winning the game. There are cards like Expropriate, Tooth and Nail, Insurrection that are kind of just game-winning cards in their own right, because you play them and you're pretty much going to be winning at that point.
It's hard not to win at that point.
If you build your deck a certain way, at least.
Optimally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many win cons should be in a deck, do we think?
I think it depends on the deck and what your goal is with the deck. Because if you're like me, I've built a lot of decks where their goal wasn't even to win. And I know that sounds dumb. Like, a lot of people play to win. But I've built decks where it was just to see how long I could drag on the game. Now, my friends made me get rid of that deck after like 3 or 4 games because I had 1 health for like 4.5 hours, I think, and they were trying to kill me.
Oh, is that the Child of Alara deck?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And I think they can be really good in a lot of decks, and I think you need some sort of win con, even if it's not just 1 card. So a lot of people will have like a couple cards in their deck and they'll say like, oh, these, if I draw these late game, I'm just gonna win. I don't think you even need that. Say you're playing like Simic, so you're playing a blue-green deck, and you just have a ton of mana and a ton of cards in your hand. You might be able to just out-tempo the other person and win the game. So you could have a bunch of like smaller, like 2/3s or something like that, with a couple good effects, and the other person can play things, but you can react to it because you're playing blue, and you can just constantly swing over and over, and you don't have a win con, and you win by just, your win con would be tempo.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is like, your main win con is just like the pure synergy of the deck. You don't have a single card like Insurrection or like
yeah,
a single card that like Tooth and Nail that like wins you the game. You're just, the raw synergy of the deck will win you the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, starting out, I always tell new players to play Simic starting out because I feel like it's the easiest to build. It gives you what most people look for in a deck, which is card draw. It gives you ramp, and it gives you win conditions, which the win conditions would be either spells that buff your creatures really big, and you have a bunch of creatures out, or giving all your creatures infect, giving all your creatures trample. Now, a lot of people hate infect, but it is a win condition, and it's an easy deck to start out with.
It is my favorite win condition.
Fuck you, guy! We're gonna have an entire episode about this.
About infect.
Yes?
Not today.
It's gonna happen. But not today, Satan.
So how would you distinguish whether or not to put a win con in a deck?
It's kind of what you want to do with the deck. Most of the time, like 99% of the time, I'd say just at least put 1 in your deck.
At least 1?
At least 1. Just so, like, oh, I draw this, it's late game, like, a lot's going on, I can hopefully win the game with this card. If you're trying to be really tryhard and you want to win all the time, put at least 5 to 10. And I'm not kidding. Like, the blue-green deck I just built has at least 8 win conditions in it. But if I'm playing my Zedru deck and it's there just to kind of fleece the board and mess around, I don't really have a win condition. It's just like things happen and occasionally I win the game.
Right.
Because I'm there more for the experience than winning.
I honestly love that Zedru deck so much.
That's why I play it so much.
Yeah. It's like, you know, it's nice to have someone who can just like completely swing the entire momentum of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, the person was in first, like, what is it, like Curse of the Dragon? What's it called?
Where you trying to
Where the person's like life total becomes 5.
that's Curse of the Dragon.
I love that card so much.
And then I match that with Soul Conduit, and I switch people's life totals so they can shoot people down for me. And I tell them I'll let them take second place as long as I win the game. And then I trade everybody's life with theirs when it goes to 5. And then they do 5 damage every instep. And then I win the game.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that wasn't like a win condition I threw in the deck. I put both those cards in there because I thought they would be
Funny.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. Because...
And that whole deck was built more around like having fun than having a win con in the deck. So
yeah.
I would say win cons are definitely what your strategy is. So like most people who want to win, which I think is most players, I would put a couple.
Yeah.
I would say at least 2 or 3.
And that kind of gets into a different topic of like, what are your expectations when you play an EDH game? Because my expectation is like, I want to win proportional to the number of people that play. And you know, our friend Park, like he wants to win like at least 50%. He's a tryhard.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have different decks. I mean, right now I only have 3, and they're pretty powered down because I'm trying to more have fun.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because I'm definitely not on that level yet. I'm still working my way up.
And I feel like each deck I have has a different, like, when I go into the game I have a different goal.
Yeah.
So like when I play my Loro deck, it's definitely to win, but I do it by locking everybody down and making people think like, hey, I'm not really a threat, and then I win.
Yeah.
And then if I'm playing my Zedru deck, I couldn't care if I win.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I couldn't give a shit. Like, I'm there to have fun, and I'm there to, like, just kind of mess with things and make people, like, try to look at their deck differently, if that makes sense. The whole reason I built that deck was so people would have to use cards in their deck in a different manner than they have to.
Yeah, a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
How do we feel about cards that are kind of that, like, game-winning, like Expropriate, Tooth and Nail, Insurrection? How do we feel about just kind of throwing those cards in as like win cons, or is it better to kind of not look for those obvious solutions sometimes?
If you're newer and you're trying to win, I think those are very good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think...
You'll find them to become boring.
Yes, exactly. That's why I really hate what people label as competitive EDH, because I could ban probably 5 cards and shut the whole competitive EDH down. And I'm not trying to brag, it's just like there's 5 cards that usually people use to win, and 1 for every deck. And if I banned those decks would be gutted.
Can you name those 5?
And would I?
Can you?
Can you? No.
We drank a little bit too much for that point.
Big thank you to Dylan for coming on and talking to us novices, giving us his quote-unquote more professional advice. So thank you to the listeners, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you very much.
Good night.
Peace.